Welcome to Enchanted Astrology with Ariel Smith. I am so happy to have you join me this week as we take a look at the astrological forecast for December 17th to December 23rd. If you have been feeling at all stuck or in limbo or like something's gotta change, I feel this week will bring about a powerful reset. We have a rare sequence playing out that helps wake us up to what is actually true, what actually matters, and release the rest. This is also the week where we transition into Capricorn season on December 21st at 8:15 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I would like to begin with our awakening point, which is happening on December 18th as Venus moves into 22 degrees of Sagittarius, where she will form two aspects. She will form a trine to Chiron retrograde at 22 degrees of Aries, and she will also form an inconjunction with Jupiter retrograde at 22 degrees of Cancer. Now, Chiron retrograde in Aries has been working to heal our wound of self-concept, of self-identity, the wound of the original split, the original separation from self. And from this split, we forgot who we are. This split ultimately created a shadow, and that is how we have been relating to ourselves since, through the fear-based, survival-based lens, a belief in this shadow concept of self. And Venus in trine here activates this identity healing through our relationships, as well as through what resonates and what doesn't resonate anymore, to the point where honesty becomes unavoidable. And Chiron retrograde during his journey has been in this ongoing square with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, because the more that we heal these wounds of self-concept, this wound of the split with self, the more the old narratives don't fit anymore. They don't even make sense. And so there are these emotional stories that we're storing and we're carrying around that really need to be worked through and ultimately let go to make room for this expanded sense of self that we're coming into. And as we do this work of clearing out these old narratives, that makes room for us to embody and resonate with a new value system, how we want to form conscious relationships and conscious partnerships, and how we relate to the world and what we value based on this more healed sense of self. And as Venus forms an inconjunction with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, there needs to be a clearing out of these old emotional patterns, old emotional stories and belief systems in order to embody this new value system. And this is the point of no return, because once we see it, we can't unsee it. We can't go back. We can't go back to old beliefs and old ways of thinking. And things that used to resonate based on those old belief systems, we just aren't invested anymore. We aren't interested. They don't resonate any longer. So this is that 22-degree point of no return that is happening on December 18th. And now we move forward to December 20th, which is a big day astrologically. We have quite a sequence of events happening here. And I'm going to start with Venus forming an exact square to Saturn as she moves into 25 degrees of Sagittarius. She's come out of that trine with Chiron, and now she's forming an exact square to Saturn as he is at 25 degrees of Pisces. And this 25 degree point is a maturity gate. It's a testing of the new value system where Venus here has realized she's not resonating with the old values anymore. She's not resonating with things that she thought she wanted. And now she's on this journey through Sagittarius of discovering what she actually does want. And she's not resonating with what was built on the illusion of the sense of separation from self. Now that Chiron is working to do that healing there, she's realizing she either can make a choice to continue with funding the beliefs and the wants and the desires that support her sense of separation from herself, that support the shadow beliefs, support the fears, or she supports her sense of wholeness and she resonates with things that bring her more into her sense of wholeness, into her higher sense of self, into that higher values and belief system. And here Saturn is saying you have to make a choice. So you can't choose both because they are mutually exclusive from one another. The shadow is the belief in the separation from self. And so you're either choosing to feel wholeness, that sense of wholeness with yourself, which is the truth, which is love, or you choose to fund the belief in separation, to fund the shadow and the fear. And Saturn here is the realization that you can only choose one, and that's what will continue forward. Now, on this same day, December 20th, we also have 4 planets that are in aspect. 3 are at the anaretic 29 degree point, and 1 is at the 28 degree point. And this anaretic degree point of 29 degrees, as we know, is a threshold point. It's a collapse of illusion. And the first aspect I'll go into here is Lilith at 29 degrees of Scorpio. And this is a point where illusion can no longer be sustained or suppressed. We have reached a complete saturation point of fear, control, power dynamics, all of these shadow concepts, and they can no longer be sustained. And Black Moon Lilith is bringing forward the raw, unfiltered truth about those themes of power, sexuality, grief, rage, survival. So things that have been buried because it threatens the survival narrative. And with her forming a trine to Neptune, at Neptune being 29 degrees of Pisces, what was hidden is now flowing directly into our collective awareness. And this is part of Neptune's final dissolving of illusions at that 29 degree point of Aries, the end of a cycle. So this trine signifies that it's something that just happens automatically or effortlessly. You don't really need to think about or put any action into it. It's a very automatic process. Now, Black Moon Lilith is also at the same time forming an opposition to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And I believe I mentioned on last week's podcast where Taurus we see as an outward reflection often of the extent of the shadows happening inside. So the more we're identified with the shadows, the fear, the illusions, the more that will show up in Taurus in the material world. And with this Black Moon Lilith and Neptune trine, bringing all of these illusions to the surface, exposing that fear-based mentality, that anything that's been hidden that represses or threatens the scarcity narrative, as that comes to the surface, it affects the systems and the things we have in place in the material world that were based on that mentality as a concept. So what did we build or create in our worlds based on survival consciousness, based on scarcity consciousness, based on fear, based on control and power and this hierarchy? All of these shadow concepts, we've built a number of systems and things in the material world that depend on that to function. And so we see this opposition as this destabilizing of these material systems, a destabilizing of these values, even how we relate to our own bodies, what we believe their value, purpose, and function is. And with Uranus being retrograde here, this, I believe, will begin with systems that are already reaching a breaking point. And this opposition with Uranus will, shock or confront these systems in such a way that they can no longer survive. And this can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like it's disrupting our sense of comfort because we've built that sense of comfort or stability on these fear-based concepts, on these illusions, and we've sort of gotten comfortable in there. And so it can definitely feel uncomfortable during this destabilization, but ultimately it's forcing a change for the better. It's forcing a change to bring us more into an alignment with our higher path, our higher self. Now we build a world that happens from the inside out. So personally, you can feel them inside before it manifests in the collective experience outside. And so maybe you've been feeling already this loss in faith or belief in these systems that are set up to support our fear-based belief system, that are meant to support this separation from our sense of self. And you've already been losing your buy-in to them. Maybe you've been feeling like you just can't pretend anymore. And this is a sign that you are choosing your truth, even if it disrupts these structures that you already have in place. So now on this same day, we also have the sun at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, squaring that Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. And as these illusions are dissolving, this false sense of self, these structures that we've built on the false sense of self, it's all dissolving the illusion and getting ready for a new cycle to begin. Our old identity, our old self-concept, and our based on those beliefs are now dissolving. We can no longer think of ourselves in the same way anymore. We can't believe in the illusion anymore. And so it forces this redefining of who we see ourselves to be. So this can come as kind of an identity crisis and sort of a disenchantment with the world that we've built. So this is all happening in perfect synchronicity with each other at this very critical 29-degree point. And it can all feel quite confusing, a little disorientating. But then we have this Mercury, again, on the same day. This is quite the day. And we have Mercury that will be at 11 degrees of Sagittarius, squaring the nodes of fate, squaring the south node at 11 degrees of Virgo, and squaring the north node at 11 degrees of Pisces. And Mercury here is helping us and our nervous system keep up with these soul level shifts by bringing us information, conversations, realizations this week that act as a crossroads. And he's going to force conscious choices about how we interpret and respond to all of this that is unfolding. He's squaring the south node in Virgo because the old ways of thinking, the old patterns, the old ways of doing things do not work anymore. And he's squaring the north node in Pisces because he doesn't want us to just stay vague with floating in a sea of nothingness. He wants us to ground into a lived experience, this higher truth and this higher perspective that's unfolding, to simplify it and live it. So it can look like, conversations that help us to understand more clearly what direction we want to go. There can be information that sways our choice one way or another. Ultimately, you get to choose. You ultimately get to choose whether you want to move forward with these changes in service to your truth, in service to your highest self, in service to love. Or you get to choose whether you want to move forward with continuing with the same narrative that you've adopted so far, or with moving forward with the dynamics that come from the belief in the separation. It's your sovereign choice as a soul. But ultimately, Mercury will help us in choosing a direction consciously. So there's a lot of support here for speaking your truth and trusting deeply in your intuition. Now, the next day, there is a release. The sun enters 0 degrees of Capricorn on December 21st, and Lilith as well moves on to 0 degrees of Sagittarius that same day. And after this truth has been exposed, this new sense of self has come about, this dissolving and disrupting of these false systems, these illusions, Lilith at 0 degrees of Sagittarius is now ready to speak her truth and do it differently. She's no longer in this mindset or this energy of confrontation or exposure or rage. She's now in the territory of this beautiful, meaningful honesty, this ethical space, reclaiming her belief on her own terms. And at 0 degrees, she's very curious and very explorative here. So this is a brand new embodiment of what comes next. And the sun at 0 degrees of Capricorn is now setting more, realistic goals. Instead of us burning ourselves out and trying to meet all of these completely unattainable goals, the sun here at Capricorn is saying, let's be a lot more realistic, and less is more, and establishing more healthy boundaries that reflect our higher selves, our sense of light within ourselves. What are we building in service to? Are we building in service to the old paradigm, in service to these funding these old wounds? Or are we now building in service to our light, our lighter selves, our lighter bodies, our truth that comes from love, from a place of deep love. And the sun at 0 degrees of Capricorn will now highlight and bring that into our awareness. So just to summarize and recap this complete arc that is unfolding this week, this series of events, we have the 22-degree point, which is our awakening, having a realization of something or seeing something that you can't unsee and that you can't go backwards at that point. It's a point of no return. And then at 25 degrees, we have this maturity, this mature perspective coming online, and this realization that there's a limit. You have to choose one or the other. You can't choose both. Then at 29 degrees, we have this point of collapse of the old system, or what we didn't choose, what is not going to be supported and sustained going forward, the breakdown and the collapse of that, and Mercury aiding us along the way to help us work through this consciously, make a conscious choice that isn't coming from old scripts, and that is helping us ground our new truth. And then we have this release, this sun breaking through the clouds of the 0 degree point of Capricorn season beginning, where we have this new structure, this new sense of faith, this new sense of renewal, where we know the direction we want to go, and we're excited and explorative now in our journey of moving forward from here. And now I will just briefly mention an offering available on my website at enchantedistrology.ca called The Heart of Holidays. And it's currently highlighting the Christmas holiday, as it's coming up here very soon, by offering some insight into how the standard Christmas traditions actually align perfectly with Capricorn's energy, teaching, and wisdom, as well as themed Christmas yin yoga class, where I teach these deeper meanings through the story of the Nightmare Before Christmas and a couple mini little rituals to try this season. And this is all available through the membership on the website enchantedistrology.ca. So if you feel called, please check it out. Thank you everyone so deeply for joining me this week. I truly appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. I wish you all a joyous holiday season, whatever that looks like for you, and I will be back next week for another episode.